We all listen to so much audio, right? Deep dives like this one,
Yeah.
stories. But how often do you feel truly part of it? Like you're actually in there?
That's a really great starting point because the whole landscape of audio, especially podcasting, it's really shifting.
Interesting how?
Well, it's moving away from just being, a static one-way street.
Yeah.
We're seeing this transformation into something much more dynamic, interactive really. Platforms that actually offer you, the listener, a chance for active participation.
Okay, active participation. That sounds interesting. So that's our focus for this deep dive then. Interactive podcasts.
Exactly.
We want to unpack what they are, why they seem to be getting so popular all of a sudden, how they work, and maybe peek into the future a bit.
Sounds good. We've got some solid source material to draw on too. Things like the audio storyteller, and a couple of pieces focused specifically on listener engagement and the rise of these interactive shows.
Great. So let's start with the basics. For anyone maybe hearing this term for the first time, what is an interactive podcast? How is it different from, the regular shows we listen to?
Right. So fundamentally, an interactive podcast is designed, specifically built to bring the audience in, often in real time,
Bring them in how?
by encouraging active engagement instead of just passive listening. So you might have things like live polls during the show,
Okay.
or listeners submitting questions that actually get answered and maybe shape where the conversation goes. Sometimes you even get shows where listener decisions directly affect the story's direction. It's kind of like the choose-your-own-adventure of podcasting, really.
Ah, the choose your own adventure for your ears. I like that. That feels like a really big shift. It makes you feel less like just a listener and more like a co-creator, maybe.
Precisely. That co-creator feeling is key, and that sense of agency is a big reason they're taking off.
But isn't there a risk there? Like, could too much choice maybe overwhelm people? Or, I don't know, maybe mess up the story if it branches too much?
That's definitely a design challenge creators are grappling with. Yeah, it's a balance. You want to give meaningful agency, not just, endless confusing options.
Right.
But the upsides are pretty clear from our sources. First, you get much deeper engagement, not just clicks, but like a real psychological investment. Listeners feel like co-owners.
Okay, so they stick around longer.
Exactly. Higher retention, stronger connection.
Yeah.
It's huge, right? In such a crowded space. Then there's personalization. Letting the audience tailor the content makes it feel uniquely theirs.
Makes sense.
And third, it's just easier now. Tech integration. Everyone's got smartphones. Smart speakers are everywhere. Apps make it simple to add interactive bits, sometimes even just using your voice.
Okay, so we get the what and the why, but it helps to have concrete examples. How does this actually work in practice? Can you share some real shows doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. There are some really cool ones out there. Take The Kind City, hosted by
Oh, that's
Tantrez.
from Queer Eye. Right.
That's the one. It lives on its own website. You listen to little intro clips, and then you actually click to choose like which part of the world you want to explore or what kind of story you want to hear next.
So you navigate it yourself.
You do. And it's got this crowdsource bit, too, where listeners share their own ideas for a kinder city. And that can actually shape future episodes.
Nice. What else?
There's a really powerful one called We Are Voices. It's from the British Red Cross.
Okay.
Super ambitious. It uses like incredibly immersive sound design, almost video gamey narration to put you right into the shoes of an asylum seeker.
Wow.
And you're given choices. You have to make decisions based on real scenarios they faced. It really highlights how much luck, rather than the system, often determines someone's fate. It's intense.
That sounds incredibly impactful, really using the interactivity to build empathy. Does this work better for certain genres, like maybe mystery or horror, where choices feel natural?
Oh, definitely. Mystery and horror are perfect fits.
Yeah.
There's one called Clearfield. It's an interactive mystery, bit of horror thrown in.
And how does that work?
The audience decides which clues the main character follows. But get this, they do it using Twitter polls after each episode.
Twitter polls, really? So it's happening out on social media, not just within the audio player.
Exactly. It brings this whole community aspect into it. People vote, discuss. It's very immediate.
I can just picture people arguing on Twitter about whether to open the spooky door or not.
Totally. It taps right into that social engagement. And there are others too. 5-week countdown, solving mysteries, 3D escape room. Frequency uses audio puzzles like codes pointing you to the next episode, or maybe a dud one,
Like a real escape room, but audio.
pretty much. Then there's Earshot, where you explore dramas in a bar, or the fairy tree, a fantasy adventure with different endings. Lots of creativity out there.
It really feels like the lines are blurring, doesn't it, between podcasts, games, social media, even a bit like interactive theater.
Hmm?
So much potential.
Absolutely. And technology is the big enabler here, no question. You've got AI, voice recognition, podcast software, getting smarter,
Hmm.
all turning static audio into something dynamic.
What kind of tech specifically?
Well, tools like Otter.ai for transcription, which is super useful if you want to create searchable interactive bits or quizzes from your content.
Right.
And then platforms like Podbean or Anchor, they're adding features for live podcasting with chat rooms, making it feel much more like a live shared event.
Okay, understanding the tech is one thing, but if someone listening is thinking, hey, I want to try making an interactive deep dive, what are the actual steps? How do you start?
Good question. It takes planning, for sure, but it's definitely doable. First step, choose the right platform. You need hosting that actually supports interactive stuff. Apple Podcasts Connect, Spotify, they're adding more tools for polls, Q&As, that kind of thing.
Okay, platform first.
Second, plan your interactive content carefully. Don't just stick it anywhere. Design specific moments for participation, maybe a segment for live questions, or themed shows where listeners vote on the topic beforehand. Trivia, challenges.
Make it purposeful.
Exactly. Third, incorporate the technology smartly. Use those AI tools. Use platforms like Riverside or Squadcast if you're doing live stuff with guests. Makes it much smoother.
Right.
Fourth, and this is still crucial, use quality podcast equipment. Your core audio has to sound good. So, decent interface, software like Audacity, maybe Adobe Audition if you're serious about editing. Don't skimp there.
Good sound is baseline. Got it.
And finally, number 5, utilize social media integration. Promote the interactive elements. Live tweet during an episode. Use Instagram polls to shape what comes next. Connect the audio to where your listeners already are.
Makes sense. Tie it all together. So we've talked about getting listeners involved. How does this focus on interaction really boost engagement? You mentioned personalization.
Yeah, personalization is huge. It's about genuinely incorporating listener feedback, using polls to pick the next topic, letting people submit questions, even suggest guests. It makes them feel like they have a real stake in the show.
It builds that bond, that loyalty, I imagine. But playing devil's advocate for a second, could focusing too much on what the audience already wants create a bit of an echo chamber? Maybe limit exposure to new ideas.
That's a really fair point. It's a tension, right?
Mm.
You need smart personalization, offering choices, but maybe also throwing in some unexpected stuff, some curated discovery. It's not just about giving them exactly what they ask for all the time.
Okay.
And another big engagement booster is gamification.
Gamification, like turning the deep dive into a game.
Not necessarily the whole thing, but applying game-like elements. Maybe points for answering quiz questions correctly within the episode. Hidden clues or Easter eggs to find. A leaderboard for the most engaged listeners.
Ah, okay. Little rewards, challenges.
Exactly. It makes listening more active, more rewarding, and gives people a reason to keep coming back. And then there's the whole area of listener-driven stories and co-creation.
Like The Moth.
Precisely. Shows built on listener stories are a prime example. Or imagine an interactive murder mystery where the listeners are actively solving clues, maybe even voting on which suspect to investigate next. That's deep involvement.
That sounds really engaging. And does this open up different ways to, pay the bills?
Yeah.
Different monetization options?
Oh, absolutely. It goes way beyond just standard ads. You could offer premium episodes where only subscribers get to make the key interactive choices.
Exclusive interaction.
Right? Or host live, interactive deep dives as ticketed events.
Mhm.
Brands are interested too, sponsoring integrated quizzes or challenges. Feels much more organic and engaging than a simple ad read. Probably a better ROI for them too.
Interesting. So it's not just about engagement. It's potentially new revenue streams. Okay. Stepping back, looking at the big picture. Where is all this heading? What's the future look like?
It's pretty exciting, potentially quite futuristic. We could see more integration with, like AR and VR.
Mhm.
Imagine listening to a deep dive about Rome and being able to virtually walk around the forum described in the audio.
Whoa.
Or maybe interacting with 3D avatars of the hosts or guests, adding a whole visual dimension.
Okay, that's definitely next level.
And then there's AI. The really wild idea is AI that could adapt the content in real time based on your mood or preferences.
Yeah.
Maybe detected through your voice patterns if you're interacting vocally, or just your engagement patterns.
AI reading my mood and changing the story. That's, wow. A bit sci-fi, maybe a little unnerving.
It is.
Yeah.
Revolutionary, potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it raises questions too. And that leads to the challenges, right?
There have to be challenges. What are the main hurdles?
For sure. There are technical barriers.
Right.
Making this stuff work smoothly across all the different phones, speakers, apps people use. That's tricky.
Compatibility issues.
Yeah. Then ensuring accessibility, making sure these interactive features are actually usable for everyone, including people with disabilities. That's crucial.
Good point.
And maybe the biggest one is constantly balancing interaction and content quality. You don't want it to just feel like a gimmick. The interaction has to genuinely add value to the story or the information, not just distract from it.
It has to serve the purpose.
Exactly. It's still early days in many ways, lots of experimentation happening, but the direction seems pretty clear.
Okay, so let's recap the core idea here. Interactive deep dives are basically changing the game, moving audio from just something you listen to into something you actively participate in. You, the listener, get to be part of the creation.
That's it. And it's this mix of new tech, clever gamification ideas, and tying all together with social media that gives you that feeling of ownership. It makes listening feel like a shared journey, you know?
So here's something to think about. Imagine a deep dive, maybe even this one, where the specific questions we ask next, or the very source material we dig into, could be chosen by you listening right now in real time. How would that change the way you learn and engage with information, making knowledge not just received, but something you actively help shape?